1992 Acura Legend. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the 1992 Acura Legend. We've been working hard on getting this vehicle back into its original state. A lot of odds and ends to take care of, a lot of deferred maintenance on this vehicle. So let's talk about where we're at with it. In the last video we did valve cover gaskets, we tidied up a bunch of oil leaks. I talked about some of the difficulties dealing with a 30-year-old car that's had extensive deferred maintenance with it. We replaced the transmission mount, showed you how that you can take window weld and tighten up that bushing in that mount. And this month it's all about how do we catch back up with some of that more deferred maintenance. We did a timing belt, which I didn't show you guys, but it's pretty straightforward. You just remove the timing covers, the belt's right there, you slide it off. We replaced all the accessory belts on this vehicle, and we did a tune-up. So we've got new spark plugs in there. And you know, one of the things that I like to harp on is making sure that it's done right. So we torqued everything to spec. We used dielectric grease when doing the tune-up. So it's really running really well at this point. We did a video on the ABS unit rebuild. Happy to report that this vehicle no longer has an ABS light on there. We did all that for about $70. So just keep that in mind. You too can actually replace the gaskets and the O-rings on that ABS unit and have a fully functioning ABS unit again. So just keep that in mind, that we're also showing you how to do cost-effective repairs here. We need to do a fuel filter on this vehicle. We're going to tidy up some interior bits. We had the stereo issue, we had the AC vent bezel crack, so we'll get into that in this video. I'm happy to report that we're going to do a full leather interior change out on this vehicle. We've already got that on order. Hopefully that'll come here in the next couple weeks. The reason why we're doing that is because the driver's seat is so bad that we can't just order one leather upholstery and have it match. So we're going to do the entire car. The entire car doesn't need it, so we'll probably end up selling off some of the leather to somebody who might need it. Text me or hit me up if you would like to purchase that from me. Otherwise, we did antenna this month. There's a little bit of a story there, so let's talk about that real quick. So the car has a antenna that raises and lowers with the voltage of the stereo, so that when you turn the car on, the stereo's on, the antenna gets notified to go up and down. Well, previous owner apparently had an issue with that. It broke off and then it was JB welded back in. Unfortunately, that could not be saved. We had to source from a donor vehicle an entirely new antenna assembly, from the motor to the mast, and actually the pieces that go around the car to keep it watertight. Unfortunately, again, with that, we weren't able to get a gold one. I really would have liked to keep everything gold on this car because that's how it came. But functionality and making sure it's the right part is more important. So we got that sourced and we got that installed, and I'm happy to report that that's working well. And so now we're on to the interior pieces and a couple other small things. We'll get into that in this video. We'll also talk about the plans for this vehicle. We're going to get Koni shocks installed on this. That'll be in an upcoming video. We always do a full exterior and interior detailing, so we'll start a little bit on that this month. And we should be timed pretty well for it to be concluded by March time, I would say. Probably end of March we'll be tidied up and this car will be able to hit the road. Whether the weather permits that will be a different story. But at least maybe we'll have warmer temperatures and we can start some of the exterior work. So I've talked a lot, let's get into it.
Perhaps one of the areas that we struggle the most with is dealing with situations that arose during other or previous ownership. And this is a good example of it. So we have here our antenna assembly. The Acura Legend has an automatic antenna that's activated by the radio, so that when the radio turns on, the antenna goes up, and then when the car is off, the antenna retracts. Well, the previous owner had obviously struggled with the antenna at one point, because this is actually broken off here, as you can see. And then we have the motor assembly over here. I'm trying to understand if the motor assembly was still good or not, because these are replaceable. You can just basically put a new one into the holder here. But this one is far too gone at this point, so we had to source another one. So here's an OEM replacement. One of the things, though, that one of the previous owners at some point in this car's life came across was this issue. They recognized that the antenna was inoperative, and their solution was to JB weld or some sort of epoxy this component of the antenna. So this is the mass that raises out. This had at some point had broken off, and the mass was then like epoxied or JB welded back into place. Well, that makes it very difficult for us to fix. We have to essentially take everything out of the car. And here on the Acura Legend, you can see we have the hole. We were lucky enough not to do any damage to the surrounding areas. These are all just rubber marks that will come off. But why this is so important is that if you're going to go ahead and temporarily fix something like an antenna, you also have to think about the long-term ramifications of epoxying it back in or JB welding it back in, because somebody's eventually going to replace that part. And we had to drill, we had to cut, we had to do a number of things to get the top end of this antenna assembly out of the car, which put the car at pretty high risk of getting damaged. Just to give you a glimpse, here's the outside sheath that goes for the antenna, and it's pretty chewed up here because of how much physical work and mechanical work we had to do to get that part out. So hopefully we'll put this in. We've got the new stereo in, and now this will be operative. This is a unit that we're going to repair to the best of our abilities. We have a broken piece here, we've got a crack here, we've got a broken piece here. Just very typical of this unit to break, and so we're going to have to fix it to the best of our abilities. Okay, here's our stock climate control bezel. It comes as one piece, but you can see ours is not in one piece. So we're going to use a combination of adhesive to put back some of the pieces, and then we're going to reinforce that with some plastic welding. And hopefully a combination of these two things, we can repair this. We should be able to get it to somewhat factory resemblance. We'll get it to a point where it's at least better looking than what it is right now. Alright, after we did some mild gluing here and here and a little bit of here, we had to do some plastic welding, like I said. I think it came out pretty well. Not perfect. Let's see if I can zoom in. So it's like you can tell that something happened there and required a repair, but I don't think it's like absolutely horrible. So it's far better to try to repair something than it is to replace something, because these are known to fail, known to crack. So if we can just do some quick reinforcement here to prevent this from happening in the future, maybe this is a win for us. Didn't cost us anything. A little bit of plastic weld, which is really cheap, and a little bit of gluing. And so now we can put this back in the car. I did have to reinforce a couple other areas. This plastic is extremely brittle all around, so we did some plastic welding on the top too, some Fastener holes got broken off, it looked like a while ago, so we did that as well. But everything looks decent, let's put it that way. Not showroom, but you know, to the person who gets in the car, unless you look really close up, you're likely not going to tell anything happened there. So now it's time to install it back in the car and call this one wrapped up. Done. Okay, so we've got it back in the car. It looks even better in the car than it does outside. I think it's mostly the angle that we were looking at it after the plastic welding. Made it a little difficult to tell whether it was a good job or not, but now that it's back in the car, it's really hard to notice anything at all. And we've got the center console pieced back together here. So we've had the Acura Legend in the garage for a couple months now, and one of the things that I've noticed and was made aware of by the previous owner is that oil drain pan is leaking. It's leaking specifically right around the fill plug. And it just slowly drips, as you can see. And it's not really a hazard to anything, but we want to solve this. The previous owner tried to put some, looks like RTV sealant around this, so we'll have to clean this off. But, so my typical repair of an oil pan plug issue would be just to source a new pan. But on the Acura Legend, it's a little bit more difficult than that, because you have the oil pan on this car is very difficult to replace. As you can see here, the drive shaft exits through the oil pan, and you can't just simply replace this. This has to be mitigated here at the pan, at the drain plug. So we're going to come up with a solution here. We're going to clean up this mess. We're going to see if we can reseal this. Previous owner let me know that he had an oil change done at one of those Jiffy Lube locations, and they basically stripped the pan and then threaded it with a different size. So we're going to figure out what that different size is. We're going to put a new plug in and mitigate this leak here. Got the oil drain plug all sorted out. Removed the RTV gasket, and happy to report that we have no leaks down here. Starting to clean up some things. We had way too much oil down here leaking from the valve cover gaskets, and so we've got to take some time to clean this up. It's been a large to-do, honestly, and we'll probably defer some of the build-up until the summertime, when we can take a pressure washer to it. But for the most part, everything's looking good under here. One thing I would want to do a quick shout out to Alan and the Acura Legend community for giving us these clips here. All of them were broken on the air box, but you can see the engine is completely back together, completely cleaned up. Like I said, we did a tune-up on that. We've got our rebuilt ABS unit back in the car. No lights on the dash there. Also clean fluid, so we took all the old fluid out, ran it all dry, and then put new, fresh OEM Acura fluid in this vehicle. Nothing but the best is what we focus on. This car is looking really good, and more importantly, I believe it'll drive really good. And the reason for that is we're taking the time to make sure everything is done right on this vehicle. We even have an OEM cap right there, because the other one was not factory. It was some sort of aftermarket. We've got a fully sealed and cleaned up engine here. You can see everything is looking really nice. Got new gaskets, new accessory belts. Every little thing has been done on this that we could see. We even replaced all the little O-rings that seal up sensors like this IAT. We also did a bunch of work with the vacuum lines here. We've got new vacuum lines. Here's an example of a new hose with new clamps, making sure that we use the right type of clamps, none of these like worm drive ones. We want to make sure that everything is to the way the factory would have done it. So we've got everything fixed up here. We even brushed the grounding straps to make sure that we've got nice strong grounds going on. On the interior, you can see that we've got the stereo back installed. We've got the bezel nice and repaired. It's a little dim in here, apologize, but you can see there's remnants of where the crack was, but you know, from the driver's seat back, you cannot tell that that was ever repaired. So that's what we aim for, making sure that we use OEM parts. This right here is a Bose 2100 non-premium faceplate attached to the internals of a Bose premium 2100 head unit. And the reason why we did that is because the amplifier in the original unit was blown. So we had to source a new one, but we wanted to make it look correctly. So the faceplate and all of the exterior buttons were resoldered and connected and is testing and functioning correctly. We did try to repair the leather seats, and you can see here's how it came out. Looks pretty good for the most part. I think that this would work if you had to do some small repairs on the leather seat, but unfortunately we're going to replace everything because of this. We cannot fix this. It's just really dry and to the point where you can put your finger through it almost in certain spots. I have, just testing it out, like right here. You can just push on it and it'll crack. So we're going to put all new leather in this. I'm excited about that. A little bit of a spend, admittedly, not keeping true to our cheap car rebuild here, but it's more important that we do it right. So everything is looking good on the Acura Legend. Excited to get this car out in the springtime and actually driving. We do still have to replace the tint, or at least remove this purple tint. It is just really annoying that it's purple. You probably saved the dash on this vehicle though. This is a crack-free dash. So everything is there. And then we have the Acura CL over here in the corner. Just checked on that. That thing is looking good. We have the RDX over here. That car's about to go out. Here are our wheels. So we have NK wheels. Got those off right now. They look almost brand new. I think they might have been brand new.